you. Um, Welcome to yoga. I'm super excited for tonight. It should be a lot of fun. And um, yeah, let's get started. So my name is Sarah. All you'll need tonight is a mat and a little bit of space. Make sure you have a little bit of space on either side of your mat today too. We're gonna have the option of flipping our dogs and doing a couple of other slightly more advanced poses if they're in your practice. So just make sure you have a little bit of space. And you're in my way. Oh, if you have blocks or another prop that you wanted to utilize, you're also welcome to grab that and have that nearby. All right, so like I said, my name is Sarah. I'm gonna throw everyone onto mute real quick, just to make sure that we don't have any feedback or anything going on. And then we'll get started. Today we're actually gonna start in child's pose. So if you wanna find that, while I mute everyone, I will meet you there in just a moment. Okay, so for your child's pose, taking those knees a little bit wider than the hips, those big toes nice and close together, sitting the hips back towards the heels, taking those arms out nice and long. Maybe you have a block or a blanket, or maybe you fold those hands underneath the forehead if that's more comfortable. Maybe you let the forehead rest on that mat and take those arms out long. Sometimes for a little bit of a stretch through the triceps, I like to bend at the elbows and bring my hands up to my shoulders. We're just going to spend a couple of moments in this child's pose today to focus and center in on our breathing, to find our breath, to let go of the worries of the day, and to come into a headspace to maybe set an intention for this practice. So while you're in this child's pose, I invite you to take just a couple of nice deep breaths, inhaling through the nose, and then sighing out that big exhale through the mouth. And one of the great things about practicing from home is that there's no ego involved in this. So maybe you take a little bit bigger of a sigh than you would if you were in a studio full of other people. And as we're in this position and as we take a couple of deep breaths, I want you to think about noticing where those points of tension in the body are. Noticing if the neck feels a little bit tense, noticing if maybe even in this position the jaw is a little bit tense or the muscles in the face are a little bit tightened. Maybe this feels really good on the low back, giving that a nice exhale to let it release. And if in your practice it feels good to walk those hands over to the right side of the mat, I invite you to do so here. Taking that nice little bit of a stretch through the left side of the body from those left fingertips all the way down to that left hip. And if you found that right side of the mat, I want you to go ahead and walk those hands through center and over to the left. This time finding that length through the right side of the body, from those right fingertips down to that right hip. And if you found that other side, go ahead and bring those hands back to center. We're finding that child's pose right in center once again. Trying to send that exhale to the legs and the hips. And we're going to start with a little bit of a shoulder range of motion. So perhaps you're seated today. just because the child's pose wasn't right for you to start. That's okay. So if maybe the legs are feeling a little bit uncomfortable, you bring it up to seated. You can do this seated up tall. We're going to find a shoulder range of motion up first. So I want you to start with that right hand. And what we're going to do is keeping the palm facing towards the floor for as long as you can. You're just going to actively lift it as far as you can. So for me, I've only got a couple of inches up off that mat. When you hit the top of that range of motion with the palm facing down, I want you to slightly open through the shoulder, let the palm face out. Bring your shoulders through its range of motion around behind the back, and then just reverse that, bringing it back around nice and slow and controlled, and then back down to the mat, palm down. We're just going to alternate side to side. So once you finish that first side, same thing with the left side. Keeping the palm facing towards the mat, lifting the shoulder and that arm as far off of it as you can come, and then opening up the hand just slightly to the outside, bringing it around behind, and then back down, nice and slow and controlled. A couple more on each side. I want you to move at your own pace here, lifting in that active range of motion and then circling it around. Now, if you're seated, it's that same range of motion. We're starting with the palms facing the mat. We're going to bring that hand up over the head. And then when it hits the edge of that range of motion, around behind the back and then back. And especially thinking about that controlled range of motion. So it might feel a little bit easier to go a little bit faster here. But I want you to just keep going nice and slow and controlled. We're going to do once more on each side. So we started with that right hand. I want you to make sure you finish with the left. I've got one more side here. If you finished a little bit before me, just taking it back to that child's pose or that comfortable seated. And I'm going to bring it right down to child's pose once again. We're going to find a couple of spinal twists up next. So we're going to bring it to puppy. So if you found seated position or if you're in that child's pose, either way, I want you to meet me in puppy. So our puppy pose, those knees come under the hips. Those hips are up high, and then we're walking those hands out like that child's pose. Now, if you're standing or from a chair today, you just find that modified down dog with the hands on the back of the chair and the hips back. Now we're going to start with our passive spinal twist here. So I want you to take that right hand and we're going to thread it underneath in between the left hand and the left knee, placing that shoulder on the floor. And we've got our spinal twist. We're going to find a little hold here. Now, if this feels good and this is where you want to stay, I welcome you to stay here. If you need a little bit deeper of a twist, you can take that left hand, bring it up towards the ceiling, bend at the elbow and around behind the back. Now, once again, if you're on that chair, and you're in that down dog, all we're going to do is walk that right hand across and that left hand over. So we've got just a little bit of a spinal twist here. We're going to spend just a moment here and then we'll switch sides. So take two more nice deep breaths in this passive spinal twist. When you finish that second nice deep breath, with your next inhale, if you have that half bind, extending that arm up, bringing it back to center. We're going to unthread that right arm, and then I want you to take it in that opposite direction for our hold over there. Left arm threads underneath, over to that side. Once again, you can stay right here with this right arm long, or you can take it up towards the ceiling and around behind the back for our half bind. So getting our spine a little bit warmed up here. Just finding this nice spinal twist hold. two more nice deep breaths in this position. At the end of that second deep breath with your next inhale, if you have that half bind, lifting that hand towards the ceiling, lengthening that arm back out, and then we're coming back to center for our puppy. From this position, we're just gonna walk those hands in so we're at hands and knees. So the shoulders are right over the wrists, the hips are right over the knees. And this time we're going to find a little bit more of an active spinal twist. So it's going to be moving. We're going to connect our breath with our movement here. So starting to warm up a little bit. We're going to start on one side and then I'll let you know when to switch. So for this one, we're going to lift that hand with our inhales and then we're going to bring it down and through with our exhales. So I'm bending at this elbow, bringing it down, and then an inhale to lift back up. So nice and slow and controlled. We've got this range of motion through the spine, keeping that spinal twist going. Staying on that single side. And we're opening up in both directions here. So it's going to be an open towards the ceiling. And then that twist in our opposite direction. Still on that first side. Give me two more nice deep inhales and exhales. Two more twists on this side. When you finish that second twist on this side, all we're going to do is trade sides. I want you to place that first hand down. We're taking that second hand. We've got that nice twist. And then down and through with our exhale. Nice work. We've got two more on this side. Give me two more nice deep breaths. Two more of those active twists. And when you finish those last two, we're going to come back to center and we're going to move that spine in that opposite direction. Now, if you have hardwood underneath you like me and those knees are starting to be bothered, you can curl up the bottom of that mat once or twice just to give yourself a little bit of extra padding here. We're going to spend another couple of moments on our knees. So we're going to move into our cat and cow up next. So again, flowing with the pace of your breath. As you inhale, I want you to drop the belly towards the floor, look up towards the ceiling, open up through the chest. As you exhale, we're rounding the spine out towards the ceiling, tucking the chin in towards the chest and that tailbone underneath. Once again, flowing with the pace of your breath here. So maybe you move a little bit faster or a little bit slower than me. That's okay. Taking your time and finding your flow today. If you're seated, maybe those hands are on the outside of those knees, using them for a little bit of support, but still finding this movement in connection with the breath, finding those inhales to press the chest forward and the exhales to round out the spine. Give me three more nice deep breaths here. So three more times in each direction. When you finish those three, I want you to bring that spine right back to neutral. Right. From this hands and knees position, we're going to find our first down dog of the day. So I want you to put a little pressure through all 10 fingers, making sure that the pressure is evenly spread out through those hands, through the palms, curl the toes under, and press those hips up and back. Now, depending on how those legs are feeling today, maybe you start with a nice bend in those knees, maybe starting to pedal out those heels a little bit. We're going to spend a moment here in our down dog. So for your down dog, the ears are between the biceps. We're opening up through the chest and pressing it back towards those ankles. The hips go up and back. So we've got almost Nice long lines, both from the wrists up to the hips and from the hips down to the heels. But once again, if those hamstrings aren't quite warmed up yet, like mine, maybe we've got a little bend in those. All right, so we've still got to get moving with those hips a little bit. So what I want you to do is just drop those knees back down to the mat nice and soft one more time. We're going to bring it back down to that hands and knees, and we're going to find some hip circles. So in the same way that we move with a slow and controlled motion for those shoulder circles, I want you to take that same kind of train of thought with those hip circles. So the faster you go, this isn't necessarily more effective. We're going to start by lifting that right knee off of the ground just slightly. So we're transferring all of our weight onto our left knee. And then we're trying to find this nice, slow, and controlled hip circle. Again, you can do this standing if that's a better position for you today. So what we're going to do is press that knee back towards that back wall with our toes pointing up towards the ceiling. As we break that plane and we need to bring it around in a circle, those toes point towards that opposite wall and we bring it around and down to meet. And then what I want you to do is take that same circle in the opposite direction. So we're lifting up to the side, around, those toes come up, and we bring that knee down to meet. So we're going a couple of times in each direction here. I want you to take it nice and controlled. I want you to think about activating all of those muscles, not only in the hip capsule, but also through the core. So our core is nice and strong here. After a long day of sitting, really waking up those hips. Sometimes I know that I don't move my hips like this enough because they start to cramp up a little bit. If that's the case, maybe just decreasing that range of motion a little bit. We're going to find 2 more circles in each direction on this side. All right, I've got one more set. If you're moving at about the same pace as me, going in that first direction and then in that second direction. When you finish that last one, setting that knee down, if you need to give those wrists a little break, maybe you give them a little bit of a roll side to side. If you're ready, we're just going to move to that other side. So we've got that same thing on that opposite hip, nice and controlled. We're starting by moving that knee backwards. We're breaking that plane, coming around in that circle, and then moving in that opposite direction. We've got a couple of times on this side. Really thinking about activating through the core, activating through all those muscles of the leg. All right, we've got 2 more on this side, you guys. Stick with me, 2 more in each direction. And when you finish those last 2, placing that knee back down. All right. So we're going to use that little bit of hip mobility that we found there to find our wide forward lunge here. So what I want you to do is curl those toes under, and we are going to bring that right foot forward into our lunge, but from that hip circle. So we're going to start with that first direction. I'm going to lift my right leg. I'm going to push that knee back and around. When I reach the top of this range of motion this time instead, I'm going to sweep my foot around and I'm going to find as far forward as I can find for that lunge. From there, I'm going to activate, I'm going to lift up, and I'm going to bring it back. We're going to do that just 3 times here, but wherever your range of motion is today is totally fine. So maybe you lift up and that foot reaches about to here. That's okay. We're still going to find that nice active lift and bring it around back to that side. 2 more in that direction. Wherever that foot lands, and back around. This is my last one on this side. And when you finish that up, we've just got that second side And then we're going to move into a little bit more of a flow. So 3 times on this second side. And I can tell a little bit of imbalance in my hips in this, because one of my feet comes a little bit further forward than the other. That's okay. We've all got a couple of imbalances side to side. All right. When you finish that third one, you've got 2 options. I invite you to bring it up into a down dog or back into a child's pose, whichever is going to be better for you today. So maybe a higher intensity today. You want to find our down dog for a moment. Maybe those knees need a little break. You find that down dog. Or maybe just to give yourself a little bit of a break, give those legs and those hips a little bit of a break. You push back to child's pose. So whenever you finish that second leg, find either of those for a moment here. All right, if you found that child's pose, go ahead and meet us up in down dog here, pressing those hips up and back, curling those toes under. And we're gonna find our right foot forward lunge up next. So in the same way that we just did, I want you to lift that right foot up and back into our 3-legged dog. And then I want you to bend at that knee, bring it around to the outside, and nice and slow and controlled, step that foot forward. Now, if you get there and that foot lands back here, I want you to just take a second, walk it forward. So our right foot is outside of our right hand. We're in this nice lunge. We're going to find a spinal twist. That left hand stays on the ground. Take that right arm up, open up through the chest towards that knee. And then a nice exhale. Go ahead and bring that hand down. We're going to switch that lunge side. So I want you to actively lift that right foot, bring it up and back, 3-legged dog, set it down, and then we're just going to switch sides. Left foot up and back, 3-legged dog, bringing it around and forward, finding that lunge. Maybe you have to step that foot forward a little bit from where it lands. That's okay. And then we're keeping that right hand on the ground. We're opening up through that left arm. Nice spinal twist here. And then exhale, bring it back down. And then we're going to bring that left foot back, 3-legged dog, nice and controlled. Set that foot down. One more time on each side, maybe a little bit quicker this time. Bringing it up and back. Around on that right side, set that foot down, lift that right hand up. Exhale, bring that right hand down. Actively lift that foot up, 3-legged dog. Set the right down. One more time, we've got that left side, up and back. Bring it around and forward. Open up through that left hand. Exhale, bring that left hand back down. Active lift, bring it up, 3-legged dog. Bring that leg down, and we're going to drop back down to hands and knees once again. So giving those wrists a little break. If you need to, you can give them a couple of rolls here. I'm going to get us set up in our side plank up next. So if you need to watch me get into this first, that's totally fine. I'm going to extend my right leg back, and then I'm going to turn my left foot to face the outside of my mat. I'm going to bring the inside of my right foot down onto the mat, and I'm going to lift my right arm up towards the ceiling. So I've got this left knee down right now. I'm going to take that up a notch for those of you that would like it. If this feels really good and this feels really strong for you, you can keep it right here. If you want a little bit more intense of a challenge here, I invite you to put a little pressure through that right foot and then lift that left knee up off the ground with it bent. So it's just hovering there. You've got a little bit more of advanced of a side plank. We're right here. If here is good, here is awesome. I love that. Keep it right where you need to be today. We've got 4, 3, 2, and 1. And all we're going to do is open up our chest a little bit. So I want you to open up the chest, bring that hand up over the head. We've got our half wild thing here. And then with your next exhale, bring that hand down and around. Turn that toe over. Bring that left foot around and bring that right knee down to meet. Now, if that left hand needs a couple of circles for the wrist, feel free to take it. And then we're just going to adjust to that second side. I'm going to extend my left foot back. I'm going to turn my right foot out to the edge of that mat. The inside of that left foot comes down, and that left hand comes up. Now, once again, we're going to find this little hold here. You need that more intensity, that higher intensity pose. You can lift that bottom leg. So we're activating through the insides of those legs. Finding this pose or this pose for another 4, 3, 2, and 1. Open up through that chest. We're extending back into our half wild thing with that knee down. With your next exhale, bring it down and around. Bring that foot back to face. Bring both of those knees down. Press up and back into our child's pose up next. So I want you to curl child's pose. Woo, man, down dog. We're gonna curl those toes under, press those hips up and back. Now, if Wild Thing is not in your practice, I invite you to find that side plank that we just found. If not, we're gonna find a little hip opener through our 3-legged dog and our Wild Thing. So I'm gonna start with my left leg because it's facing you guys. So we've got our 3-legged dog. We're gonna bring this foot up and back. Now our hip opener, I'm gonna bend at my knee, and just like we did for our hip circles, I'm gonna open my hip just a little bit here. So if you get to this position and you feel nice and balanced, you can stay right here. If you need that higher intensity or you'd like to flip your dog for a little lower intensity on the hip, we're gonna bring that foot all the way down to the other side. My left hand, which is the same side as the foot that came over, comes up, and then we've got our Wild Thing pressing up and over and back. So maybe right here was where you needed to be, and you're still right here, taking another moment. Maybe we're in our Wild Thing. Either one of those options, with your next exhale, I want you to bring that hand back down and then bring that foot back down to the mat into our down dog. We're just gonna switch those sides. I'm going with my right leg next, whichever one your other side is great. Foot comes up and back. We've got our hip opener, so we're bending at that knee, opening up through the hip. And then once again, you can stay right here if this feels good and balanced, or maybe that foot comes down and that opposite arm comes up and over into our full Wild Thing. Wherever you are, with that next exhale, I want you to bring that hand over, bring that foot up, place it down. We're gonna meet in our child's pose, bringing those knees down wide and those toes together. Now, if you want a little bit less of a break, but you want to give the wrists a break, I welcome you to meet in Dolphin up next. So if you want a little higher intensity of a class today, just bringing those forearms down, taking those hips up and back, just like you would in your down dog. Now, if you need a little break here, if those wrists are feeling a little tired, if that core is feeling a little tired, I invite you to just bring it down to child's pose. If you are up in Dolphin and forearm stand, headstand, or handstand is in your practice today, I invite you to find any of those. We're going to spend another couple of moments in these recovery poses. If none of those are in your practice, I invite you to just stay right where you are. Just take a couple of deep breaths. Now, if you found your handstand, your headstand, or your forearm stand, nice and soft, bring those feet down. Find that dolphin once again, and then bring it down, meet us in child's pose. All right, we're gonna find a little flow to finish us off today. So we're gonna take it up to down dog. So a little pressure through all 10 of those fingers, pick those hips up, curl those toes under, hips up and back into our down dog. Now we're just gonna keep it moving here with the pace of our breath. If you've been with me before, I do the first half of this flow in almost every single one of my classes. I want you to inhale, find a nice long spine, lengthen out a little bit further. With our exhale, we've got 2 ranges of motion. We're gonna shift those shoulders out over the wrists. We're gonna lower down. You can always drop those knees. And then with your next inhale, we're gonna press up. We've got cobra, low cobra, or up dog. With your next exhale, curl those toes under, press those hips up and back. Now this is where it changes up from normal just a little bit. I want you to walk, step, or jump those feet towards those hands. We're gonna find the top of our mat in our forward fold. With your next inhale, I want you to find a halfway lift, nice flat back, nice long spine. Exhale to fold forward, taking a moment down here. Now, if those feet aren't right next to each other, I want you to heel toe them so that they meet. We're gonna sit those hips back. We're gonna sweep those arms up into our chair pose, Utkatasana. From here, I want you to find a nice inhale and exhale, find a little strength through those legs. And then I want you to exhale, fold down, bring those hands back down to the mat, lift those hips up nice and tall, step or jump those feet back into our high plank. Exhale to lower down, inhale to lift up. Exhale, turn those toes over, press those hips up and back. All right, we're gonna find that one more time. We're gonna add a little bit to the edge of that chair. Inhale, nice long spine. Exhale, float the shoulders out over the wrists, find that high plank, and then lower down. Inhale, press up. You've got cobra, low cobra, or up dog. Exhale, turn those toes over, press those hips up and back. Step, walk, or jump those feet to meet those hands at the top of your mat. Inhale, find a halfway lift, nice long spine, flat back. Exhale, lower those hands back down towards the mat. If those feet aren't right next to each other, go ahead, heel toe them together. Sit those hips back. Inhale, find me a halfway lift into our chair here. Sorry, lift those arms into a chair. There we go. All right, so from here, we're gonna add on to this a little bit. If you need a break at any point, feel free to lengthen those legs. I want you to take those palms, bring them together, bring them down to heart center. We're gonna find a spinal twist here. So I want you to take that right elbow to the outside of that left leg. We're gonna use it as a little bit of a prop here. So we wanna try and stack those hands on top of each other. Now, if this is a little tough and you need to lengthen up a little bit, you can lengthen up a little bit. We've still got this little bit of a spinal twist. If you need a little bit more of a challenge today and you want to step it back into a lunge, I invite you to lift that right leg and step it back. If you found that lunge, I want you to bring it back to our chair. With that next inhale, lengthen those arms, but not those legs. And then with your exhale, bring those hands down to the mat. Inhale to lift those hips. And then go ahead and step it back into our high plank. Exhale to lower down. Inhale to lift up, cobra, low cobra, up dog. Exhale, turn those toes over. Press the hips up and back, down dog. All right, nice job, you guys. We've got to get that other side in still. Inhale, nice long spine. Exhale, I want you to float those shoulders out over the wrists and then lower down. Inhale to press up dog, cobra, low cobra. Exhale, turn those toes over, press those hips up and back. Step, walk, or jump those feet forward to meet the hands. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. If those feet aren't close together, bring them right next to each other. Bend at those knees, sit the hips back, sweep those arms up. Same thing here. If you need that little bit of a break, you're always welcome to lengthen those legs a little bit. I want you to bring those palms together, pull them down to heart center. This time, that opposite elbow is coming to the outside of that other leg. We're stacking those hands right on top of each other. If you need a little bit extra of a challenge, you can step that left leg back into our lunge here. If you found that lunge, I invite you to step that foot back forward into our chair. Everyone inhales to lengthen those arms, but not those legs. Exhale, bring those hands down to the mat, lengthen those legs. Step those feet back, find that high plank. Exhale, lower down, and then inhale to press up, cobra, low cobra, up dog. Exhale, turn those toes over, press the hips up and back. We're gonna find that flow one final time, but without our spinal twist. Inhale, I want you to find a nice long spine, hips up and back. Exhale, float the shoulders out over the wrists and lower down. You can always drop those knees. Inhale, press up, cobra, low cobra, up dog. Exhale, turn those toes over, Press those hips up and back. Step, walk, or jump those feet forward to meet the hands. Inhale, halfway lift, nice long spine, flat back. Exhale, fold forward. If those feet aren't next to each other, bring them that little bit closer. Sit those hips back. Inhale, sweep those arms up. Finding this for a couple of moments. Trying to keep that spine nice and long, trying to activate through those shoulders in the same way that we did with that lift. We've got 4, 3, 2, and 1. Exhale, lower those hands down. Lengthen those feet or those legs up. We're stepping it back, high plank. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, press up. Exhale, turn those toes over, hips up and back. Back to our down dog. All right, spending just a moment here. I want to find one more hip opener. So once again, if that side plank was a little bit better for you today than our wild thing and our 3-legged dog hip opener, I invite you to drop those knees and find that side plank on that one side, turning that foot out to the edge of that mat. If that 3-legged dog was better, let's go ahead and lift that foot up and back, bend at that knee, open up through the hip. When you're ready, if that's in your practice, we're flipping over for our wild thing, or you're just lifting that bottom knee, or you're in that side plank, you've got that bottom knee down, you're opening up through the chest. With your next exhale, bring that hand back down, lift that foot up and back into our 3-legged dog if you're there, and then bring that foot back down. Now, if you're in that side plank, we're going to switch sides, so turning that opposite foot to meet the edge, extending that other leg. If we're in our 3-legged dog, bringing it up and back. Open up through the hip. If it's in your practice, finding our flipped dog, our wild thing. If you're in that side plank, you can open up through your chest. With your next exhale, wherever you are, bringing that hand back down, that foot back up, bringing it down to meet. All right, we've got just a few more moments. So I want you to drop those knees down to meet the mat. Sit those hips back towards the toes and that child's pose. We're going to start to bring it down a notch. So I want you to refocus, recenter in on your breath. Give me 2 more nice deep breaths in that child's pose. When you finish that second deep breath, I want you to come up to those knees. Seated up nice and tall here. I'm just going to finish out with one final breath so I don't get cut off today, because I know I ran us a little bit long, but I want to get all that awesome work in. You guys did great. Thank you for being here today. Finishing out with one final nice deep breath, bringing those arms out and up.